There's a lot of
It's getting on the headlines.
There are some.
Right. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. I'll call the meeting to order. Woo! Woo! Okay, woke everybody up from lunch. Are we properly posted according to the public record or open meeting law? Yes.
Yes.
The first item is a public comment period. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address us? Seeing none, we will close the citizens' participation, and approval of minutes are next. Do we have any changes, corrections, modifications? Seeing none, I'd be happy to take a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved. I don't think we require a second.
Correct.
Correct. No seconds are required. So, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Designate officers for 2017-2018.
Yes, Madam Chair, pursuant to the bylaws of the steering committee, at the October meeting, we are to select a chair and vice chair. And so here we are at the October meeting, and we need to select a chair and vice chair. I will state that even though Mayor March is unable to attend today, she has expressed interest in running for chair. And then my understanding is, Commissioner, that you'd be interested in serving as vice chair. I don't know if someone wants to make that a formal
Anybody
nomination.
else
If there are
wants
any
the
other
job, but
nominations?
it's just- Very truthfully, Deb and I switched out when she ran for mayor, and because I'm running for, I didn't want to be kind of in this mix, so I'm fine with that if you're all comfortable with that at this point. Okay.
And I move.
Okay, okay, but we would have Deborah March, Mayor March as chair, and I'll serve as vice chair then. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
So, Madam Vice Chair, the meeting is now yours.
Okay, we have an update on the Urban Agricultural Conference that we held in town in August, wasn't it?
It was indeed, yes. And so with us today, we have Corey Bosket, who I believe is going to give a presentation from the Cooperative Extension. You may recall that this discussion started probably about a year ago. There were some interested citizens in the community, Rick Passo, Rick Van Diepen, Rick Jimenez, the triple Ricks, as we call them, that came and presented to Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition, if I'm not mistaken, and kind of started a dialogue. And then, Commissioner, I think with your direction to county staff and other was to see what could happen to bring some folks together. I think you all made the initial contact with the Cooperative Extension, which seemed like a logical partner in this initiative, and then Southern Nevada Strong also helped out. So. Yeah, the event was held in late August, very well attended. There was a first half day was a workshop. I'm probably stealing some of Corey's thunder. Sorry, I do that sometimes. And then there was a full day workshop the next day, and yeah, we were quite impressed with the turnout. And this is really just the beginning of the discussion. I think there's a lot that's going to kind of blossom from this effort. So with all of that, let me turn it over to Corey Bosket.
Welcome again. He did a presentation yesterday.
Yes, that's right.
You should be a pro by now, right?
I think so. Okay, everybody, I'm Corey Bosket from the Cooperative Extension, and I'm going to give you a quick overview on what we did here. This was the first time we've had a urban agriculture summit here, so it was really neat to hear all the interest. There's a lot of questions that were going around, so I'm going to kind of address them as we go through the presentation here. Okay, the event was, in partnership with the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension, Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition, and Southern Nevada Strong. And we divided it into three different things. We had the Southern Nevada Food Action Planning Committee that took place on August 23rd, the Southern Nevada Urban Agriculture and Food Sustainability Forum that took place on August 24th, and we did a tour of Las Vegas Valley urban agriculture, and we made a dinner out of it, and I'll explain that to you later. Now, the Southern Nevada Food Action Planning Committee was held on August 23rd from 9 to 1:30 at the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension. The event brought together 53 attendees to identify food policy goals and objectives as outlined in the Southern Nevada Strong Regional Plan and example strategies to implement a food action plan for Southern Nevada. So we had presentations included a welcome announcement by Eric Killian from UNCE and an overview of the Southern Nevada Food Council by Dr. Aurora Buffington, and an overview of the SNS regional plan by Ray Lathrop. We had breakout sessions. We were able to help. We had brainstorm. We brainstormed solutions for food-related SNS strategies. The SNS strategies reviewed during the planning session included things that related to food insecurity, access to healthy food, food options, community wellness, reducing obesity, and composting. We went around, and to get everybody's input was really fantastic opportunity because a lot of times a lot of people were siloed, so a lot of things were brought out in the open that we didn't even know existed. And we actually got to go through the Southern Nevada regional plan in a lot more detail, so that was pretty exciting too. So the meeting concluded with a message from Dr. Wayne Roberts, a Canadian food policy analyst and writer leading in the field of innovative local and urban food systems. And he actually walked around through all of our breakout session groups to give us some input and some insight into what other places are doing throughout the world. The next day we had the Southern Nevada Urban Agriculture and Food Sustainability Forum. That was on 24th, and the purpose of the forum was to create a blueprint for urban agriculture policy and economic diversification that will support an equitable and sustainable food system for Southern Nevada. The event brought together over 120 attendees from government, academia, and industry to include health and nutrition, agricultural producers, chefs, and other related fields. This was neat. We started off with a nice opening greeting from the governor. That's really cool to get that support. We saw him during the Clean Energy Summit, and he brought up a lot of the issues that have to do with the indoor ag, including providing energy and water savings that we can do down here in Southern Nevada since we don't have a lot of water. Opening presentations included a summary of the SNS regional plan and its food-related strategies by Raymond Hess, RTC, an overview of state and federal agriculture initiatives, as well as the Zion Garden Park program by Corey Bosket, a speech about recently passed Senate Bill 429, establishing provisions related to urban agriculture by Senator Ivana Cancela. And this was neat because she was the chair of the Natural Resources Committee, so she was able to give and they're the ones that introduced SB 429, the bill, and that's the one that got passed. And so getting that insight into what its purpose was and have that conveyed to the attendees was a really awesome experience. And we had a presentation about the Southern Nevada Food Council and a summary of the Food Action Planning Committee meeting by Dr. Aura Buffington. They're actually going to have a meeting today for the Southern Nevada Food Council. So a lot of things are in the works, and they're going forward right now. There's a lot of partnerships and a lot of people that are taking it seriously and trying to figure out what they're going to do. So this is kind of neat.
Corey, can I just ask, is the Southern Nevada Food Council, what Deb and I were just talking about, is the Governor's Council that he established several years ago, or is there a different one?
Aurora's on that council with the governor, but this is a Southern Nevada specific food council.
Okay, perfect. Bless you. Thank you.
Now, the keynote presenter was presented by international speaker Dr. Wayne Roberts, a Canadian food policy analyst and writer leading the field of innovative local and urban food systems. In his presentation, Dr. Roberts shared his expertise to help Southern Nevada take the next steps towards developing a strong food city. Highlights from his presentation included collaboration strategies, food city examples, and recommendations for implementation of strategic plans. There's a lot of strategic plans that have to do with food from our food security plan, Nevada State Food Security Plan. We have an indoor agriculture plan or a report. We also have lots of strategies in the SNS document. We went through a lot of them, and interconnected strategies that have to do with the water and power needs. And one of the things he brought up was he has an acronym called FEW, and it stood for food, energy, and water. So without having those three taken into consideration, it's going to be hard to do urban agriculture.
And most importantly, his presentation had lots of great pictures of cats, which
Yes,
was really
it did.
amusing. So my wife appreciated that. Like with a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
He did have good pictures. So the next presentation was the panel discussion titled The Food Nexus, and it was led by Dr. Aura Buffington from UNCE, and panelists include Rick Van Diepen from Greenview Global, Roz Brooks from Vegas Roots, and Andy Baliti, dietitians for professional integrity. And the discussion was opened with a presentation by Dr. Buffing addressing the food system from production to consumption. And the panel discussion provided perspectives into the complex relationship between food, water, energy, environment, health, and nutrition. And this was a pretty good conversation, and there was lots of questions, and people got to get a lot of answers. And so bringing all this together, understanding the relationship, was very important as far as making sure that some groups of agricultural producers aren't left out or that they can actually work together, whereas if you have a land divided to where you have traditional agriculture and you have also indoor agriculture working together and figuring out how to do that. So that was neat. The panel discussion was followed by the off-the-wall live chef demonstration and luncheon. Chef of Buzz Catering and Master Gardener, Joanne Reckling, harvested fresh lettuce directly from aeroponics living wall on display provided by Indoor Farms of America. Also on display was the hydroponic grow wall for Opcom Farm. Chef Joanne prepared a garden salad using the different types of herbs and lettuce harvested from the wall while explaining many of the characteristics unique to the salad ingredients. And this was kind of neat because we used some of the produce that was growing out at the UNCE Botanical Gardens as well as actually having salad on hand. So we actually, that salad was actually eaten by the attendees as we gathered those. And it had strawberries and some walnuts. So it was really a nice salad when it was all done.
Nice. I could make a good dressing to go along.
It was really nice. Following the luncheon, we had 3 indoor agriculture companies each giving presentations, highlighting various aspects of indoor agriculture through vertical, hydroponic, and aeroponic technologies. These presentations complemented aspects of commercial indoor agriculture report from the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Presenters included Robert Colangelo from Greensense Farms, Rachel Winman, Urban Seed, and David Martin, Indoor Farms of America. Each presenter shared their experience and insight into how vertical farming can be used to bring fresh, locally grown produce to anywhere in the world. Key points addressed how indoor farming can produce more food with less environmental impact and touched on the business models and economic viability of indoor agriculture. And this was important because these were a lot of questions that were brought up as far as what are the economic benefits, what kind of workforce is going to be necessary, what's the technology involved. So that was really neat to get that insight from these guys. The next presentation was the panel discussion titled STEM, CTE, and Workforce Development for Urban Agriculture, and was led by Amber Bosket from State Renewable Energy. Panelists include Dr. Howard Gordon, UNLV, and then Dr. Angelo Callahan from UNCE, and Cheryl Wagner from Clark County School District. The discussion was opened with a presentation by Mrs. Bosket explaining STEM and showing examples of local CTE programs addressing high-tech urban agriculture, and the panel discussion provided insight from academia, professionals, into how STEM and CTE can prepare the future agricultural workforce through continuing education and interchangeable career pathways. This was interesting because it tied in a lot to our education system and the fact that a lot of the millennials are projected to be changing careers every 3 to 4 years. So having that background in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics allows them to get other careers that might actually exist in the future. So
We're going to start calling it STEAM,
Yeah.
so we don't forget about the arts and culture.
don't forget about the art, yeah. And so it was really interesting. One of the examples is West Tech has a licensed greenhouse, and they do hydroponics as well. And they grew this summer, over the summer, they grew 1,300 pounds of sweet potatoes. And then they have a farmer's market, and afterwards they sold those 1,300 pounds for $1 a pound and made $1,300 in 25 minutes. So the economic viability and just what a school can do to actually produce a little revenue for their programs, it was quite interesting. And this was something new for them, so I don't know what they're going to do next time. Maybe they'll sell for 2 hours and quadruple their profits, I don't know. In closing, Dr. Roberts gave a summary of his recommendations that he spoke about during the Food Action Planning Committee meeting in his afternoon keynote speech. The event concluded with a networking social to allow speakers and attendees to interact and engage in further discussion of the next steps for creating a robust food system in Southern Nevada. The day's events were moderated by me, and the event included catered breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks. And that was neat because we tried to have as many fresh vegetables and local produce as we can to give to all the attendees so that we can, experience using a lot more produce in our meals. The planning committee for the event included me from UNCE, Corey Bosket, Dr. Rory Buffington from UNCE, Millicent Raxon Calhoun from UNCE, Raymond Hess from RTC, Ray Lathrop from RTC, Paul Gully from RTC, Shane Amarin from Clark County, Mario Bermudez from Clark County, Jared Tasco from Clark County, Dr. Wayne Roberts, Food Policy Analyst, Rick Passo, Food Hub Strategist, Rick Van Diepen, Greenview Global, and Amber Bosket, State Renewable Energy. Having all of these people together just from my take was really good because we were able to get a lot of issues solved and a lot of questions answered for the attendees. Like we made sure that we gave them the questions that they didn't have answers to. So that was really neat to be able to have so many specialists in related fields that can cross platform with each other.
And Corey, if I could just interrupt, I think this really underscores, this kind of the model that we're trying to use for Southern Nevada Strong through collaboration that, again, the Southern Nevada Strong team alone, we're not subject matter experts in the space of food policy or urban agriculture, and so trying to bring in as many partners as possible to kind of advance this forward. And of course, it really, the efforts and passion of Rick Passo and Rick Van Diepen and Rick Jimenez especially really helped bring this issue to light and got us involved in the first place. So it's kind of that, that process kind of evolved organically and brought in those partners. So I look forward to how we'll continue it in the future
Yeah,
as well.
That's true. I mean, it was very organic, the way we actually did it, because we were able to really hear everybody's side of the story. And when everybody can find these common grounds, it was really easy to collaborate. And having a Southern Nevada Strong document to work from was even better, because now we could go, oh, whose name's on here? And then go, okay, you said this, and so let's see, are you still interested? And a lot of people were, so that was good. Next, we were planning to have a tour earlier, but we had some flight delays, so we scheduled another tour to make sure we got this part accomplished. But to complement the Urban Agriculture and Food Sustainability Forum, a tour of urban agriculture sites in Las Vegas Valley gave a group of food specialists a hands-on perspective of what can be done in the region. The tour included stops at the Zion Community Garden Park. That's pretty cool. Zion Community Garden actually, it's won a lot of awards, but it was also featured in the USDA Fridays on the Farm series, so they have a national article about it as a model for change. So that was really neat to go down there and integrate some of the vegetables and fruits. The tour developed into and the tour included stops at Zion Community Garden Park, Indoor Farms of America, and at the Cooperative Extension. The tour developed into a food harvesting experience that led to a farm-to-plate dinner. At each stop, produce was gathered that would eventually be used to prepare a meal that evening, which was attended by a group as food producers from the various 4 stops. A full feature story on the event titled "Food Specialists Forage the Las Vegas Valley for Locally Grown Food, Then Prepare a Meal," written by Amber Bosket, can be read online at Energy Tree. If you go to energytree.org, it's a really interesting article just on all the interaction and how we can all work together between traditional agriculture and indoor agriculture and what can happen when we do that, and just open up the conversation. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot going on right now. A lot of people are trying to figure out partnerships with the colleges, with the Nevada State College and things of that nature. So look forward to seeing what happens. And if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Where is Zion Community Park?
It's in North Las Vegas. It's right behind the Culinary Academy.
Correct. Adjacent to.
Yeah, adjacent to.
Relatively
Yeah.
new, within the last 2 years.
Go through, or is it-
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, but they got a $500,000 grant, I think. or
Yes, that was
something
part
like
of the Choice Neighborhoods Award
Yeah.
initiative, and so as a revitalization area, and then all of a sudden a Conservation District of Nevada jumped on as well, and then USDA jumped on, and there's several other, there's a whole list of partners that
Right.
jumped on to.
$50,000 grant.
That was
Oh, 50, I had an extra
Yeah,
zero
50
in there.
from-
That would have been nice.
Well, it was 50,000 for the Conservation District of Southern Nevada, but the Choice Neighborhoods Award was actually a $500,000 grant
Yes.
to do the revitalization
So everything
planning,
else.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal community effort. I didn't get to be over there, but I have to give Roz Brooks credit, though, for getting the community garden concept even
Yes.
out there for us to have
Yes.
conversations. And then Greener Planet's been active.
Oh,
I know
definitely.
zoning-wise, we've been I require, at least for schools that come in for remodels or whatever in the district, I require now a school garden of at least 5,000 square feet to have to be incorporated. So I mentioned that to the other city council and county, so they may start doing that. Those are places where we can find some commonality that come into play. And then made a note to myself, because I forget things. Do we work with the State Department of Ag at all at this point?
We are trying to work with them as far as the processes that are going on. We're trying to find a way that everything can
To
be done.
incorporate?
Yeah, according to
Because
their
there may be
rules.
best practices, even in our rurals, that they may have or we may not have.
Yes,
and that kind of
exactly. I
thing.
think that becomes the issue as far as a lot of things on paper. And I think that's what Senate Bill 429 was
Intending to
do, was help us to figure out ways so we have hoop houses. And we're having issues with hoop houses right now as far as it's not something that was traditionally done, agricultural zoning within the city. So
Right. Look at Chicago. They have the largest agricultural high school in the United States, actually, there. And it's cows, chickens, and everything. The kids grow, they
It's
sell, it
amazing
goes
what you
into a
can do.
scholarship, and
Yeah.
it's like 33 acres or something.
yes,
I grew up there, and I didn't even know about it, so.
It's amazing what's going on with the agriculture, like you said, because we've been trying to deal with some of the other cities as well, asking how they did it. I mean, through Portland and just other areas, just how did you incorporate this and how did you get this into the city? And they've done it a long time ago to be in agricultural communities, but we've been looking to them to see how to.
Yeah, because we don't have,
things forward.
the cities all have redevelopment areas, the county doesn't. And so conceptually, there might be some ways to link some of that together as you repurpose some of the buildings that are out there sitting empty and some things.
Yeah,
I made a note to myself, there was an excellent article maybe a year ago, and I'm trying to find where I had downloaded it, but it's about food waste. So I would ask, as you have your conversations, the grocery stores are throwing away a great deal of product just because it's got a bruise or a nut or a knuckle on it, and we have to teach the population that it's not bad food, it just is ugly, but it doesn't change the use of it. And the chefs actually took all the throwaway stuff and cooked for a community to show them the value of the product. I think it was National Geographic, but I saved it someplace, so I'll try to get that to you. But I think there's an additional conversation that has to come. Some of the stores do donate, because we passed laws years ago that allow them not to have a, get sued if something happens. But many of them, I'm told, are tainting it with bleach and other things so that they have an excuse to not repurpose it and then being allowed to pitch it. So that's a lot of product that's
Yes.
going away. So just throw that out there for one of your councils to have conversations.
Okay, I'll do that too, because that's actually very important. We try to, at Zion, try to find ways to minimize, reduce waste, and make sure that we can, bring the chefs into it. How
Right.
do you produce things? If things that are grown naturally sometimes don't look exactly how you want to. in the store.
Exactly, what your picture is. of it.
Yeah, so you have to be able to move past that and chop that off. And these are things that chefs and the chef programs that exist out there are helping to do right now.
Okay, thank you. Questions from anybody? Comments? Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
The next is an update on efforts to implement the Southern Nevada Strong Regional Plan by Clark County School District.
Yes, Madam Chair. We always try to showcase a regional partner whenever we do, these meetings, just so you can kind of see some of the work that's being done. And after our last meeting, Craig Stevens had approached us and said, the school district is implementing and building new schools, and that's going to help with some of the educational efforts here in the valley. So Craig, why don't I just turn it over to you, and then you can introduce your speakers and go from there.
Great, thank you. Red light on, or the green light? There we go.
Green light.
As Raymond said, I've been coming to these meetings now for about a year and a half, and always interesting how the Clark County School District can sort of help promote the agenda of Southern Nevada Strong. And one of the ways that we do that is not only providing a quality education to kids, but when you move to a neighborhood, the school is just there, right? You know the school you go to, that's where your kid goes, and then you move on from there. But actually, how does the school get there? How does the Clark County School District, how does growth affect our decisions, but also our decisions affect growth as well? And so we wanted to bring our experts here. We have Blake Cumbers and we have Rick Baldwin here going to do a presentation about this. Now, at the beginning of the presentation, it's just some facts and figures about CCSD, and we're happy to get into that, for example, the reorg, if you all want to. But this main presentation is just about how we are building schools, how we're using the money, and the processes we go through that. So just want to put that out
Thanks,
there.
Fred. It's your show.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, my favorite.
I'm Blake Cumbers. I'm Associate Superintendent of Facilities for Clark County School District. And that division is about 2,000 employees of the school district's staff, and that constitutes the entire maintenance staff of the Clark County School District and all the people responsible for capital programs. So that's the scope of my responsibility at the school district. Today, and assuming this works, yes, we're going to talk about what's new at Clark County School District, specifically about the 2015 Capital Improvement Program, some completed projects that I want to show you, some projects under construction, and then Rick Baldwin, who's a Director of Demographic Zoning and GIS, is going to take over, talk about residential development tracking and other aspects of how schools are zoned and the growth that's happening in the district that's really driving the construction that we're doing. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about what's really a hot topic at the school district right now, and that's Clark County Schools Achieve. And this was created by AB 469, and it's our collective efforts to implement the new law and to reorganize the school district. And what the result will be is increasing autonomy for the schools, and that will in turn result in flexible budgets. So the schools themselves have more control over the funds that fund the school district. At the end of the day, in 2 years, we'll have 85% of all the funds that are spent by the school district in the hands of the school principals and their school organizational teams. These school organizational teams were mandated by law. They'll result in 6 to 8 parents being directly involved in the operations of the school, which is a really, really good thing because it means that hundreds of parents will have direct exposure to the administration and the operation of the school itself. It's a school where very frequently their children attend that school. So they'll have exposure to the budget, they'll have exposure to the curriculum, all the special programs that the teachers implement at that school, and they'll have some control over those dollars that are discretionary at that school. If you want to read more about this in detail, I've offered the site where you can go, reorgccsd.net. There's a lot of information there online about the reorganization, about how AB 469 is being implemented, and what the result will be. Carrying on here, the CCSD is celebrating 25 years of its Magnet School program. Lomi G. Hurd is one of those programs. It's a Marzano Academy. Dr. Marzano is a renowned person in education, has a very specific program for getting kids to reach levels of mastery in education. And it's a sort of an experiment at Lomi G. Hurd. It's the only program of its kind in our school district. And it's I'm really excited about it because I heard Dr. Marzano speak, and he's eloquent, yet down to earth, and he really has a profound understanding of children and how they develop, how they grasp concepts. We've opened 12 magnet schools in the last 3 years, and 3 new STEM programs are opening next year at Gearing, Lead, and O'Callahan Middle School. So these are all very, very exciting to the kids and to the district. One bit of news I don't know if you caught in the news, but our graduation rate has hit a record high. It's 82.71%, and in 2011 it was just 59%. So that's remarkable. I think it's also remarkable because I've only been with the school district about 2.5 years, but I've come to appreciate what the school district is all about and how it works. Why this is really, really important is the resources that the school district has are extremely limited. I don't know if you're aware, but Nevada is about 48th in the nation in terms of per pupil funding. So to achieve this level, this graduation rate, and to make this kind of progress is really, really extraordinary given the resources that the school district has. And this year, over 20,000 graduates graduated from high school this year. It's a really, 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 really big achievement for the school district, and the school district's very, very proud of it. Enrollment for the 2017-18 school year is just over 322,000 students. One of the things that I've come to appreciate about the enrollment in the Clark County School District is its diversity. So many different students from so many different backgrounds, and so many kids that are served that are underprivileged, that are homeless, that are without parents at home. 90 different languages are spoken by the kids in the school district. It's an amazingly complex organization that supports so many kids. During the 2017 school year, we opened 6 new elementary schools and 2 replacement schools, and Don and D. Snyder Elementary School at Ford and Riley is going to open January 8th, 2018. I was there this morning, and I'm really proud of the crew that's working there. They're doing an extraordinary job, and we accelerated this school. It was supposed to open in August. We accelerated this program, and they're doing really, really great work, and I'm quite certain it's going to open on time. 4 new elementary schools were just named. They're going to open in August of 2018. That's Shirley A. Barber, Kenneth Divich Elementary School, Robert and Sandy Ellis, and Dennis Ortwine Elementary School. All these schools are coming along fine too, and they're all going to open in August of 2018. If you're not aware, the Nevada legislature, the last Nevada legislature enacted bills, Senate Bills 119 and 207, and they authorized the rollover of bonding authority. And what that will result in is $4.1 billion in available funds for capital improvements. These are funds for building new schools, school replacements, renovations, modernizations, and various other aspects of the capital assets of the school district. It's important that I point out that you can't use these funds for any operational purpose. It's only for capital spending. So that's a very important point to understand.
And the school district should never let it lapse again, because I wrote the original law. That was my bill in 1999. And they let it lapse about 8 years ago, so now we're finally redoing it again. So I'm thrilled because constitutionally, we don't have much bonding capacity at all. So I
Well,
think they
thank
have
you.
another.
Thank you for that.
And I'm just saying, because I was going to sue the school district for inadequate education, so we came up with a compromise. But I'm just thrilled because there were so many needs out there, and we're building our schools so much larger than anybody's does anyplace else in the United States, and we really have to start thinking organically about how to make them smaller or create schools within schools, because it's insane to have 1,000 to 1,200 kids on an elementary school campus.
We're building the schools now for 850, and many schools, as you point out, there's 1,000 students, and
Yeah.
that's because we fell so far behind. I don't know if you're aware, but there's 2,200 portable classrooms in the school district. And
trying-
that's how we mitigated the overcrowding.
Right. Well, North Las Vegas, you need to rebuild Bridger, build it on the park, flip it, take the park out, put the school back on. So you can just do it all in one fell swoop.
Right now,
It's
yeah, it
no
works.
problem.
Yeah. Oops. This is the issue. We've analyzed the capital needs over the 10 years of this program, and it's really closer to $8.4 billion that we need. One of the things that's really, I've come to learn, is misunderstood is the total cost of ownership of a 35 to 37 million square feet of buildings. The needs for capital reinvestment after you build a building and you reach 20 years of age of a building is just like your house. The HVAC systems start to fail, the plumbing starts to fail, the roof starts to fail, the asphalt, if you have a driveway, starts to peel up and become brittle and needs to be replaced or coated. And the capital funds that need to go back into the school district are absolutely as necessary as the initial funds to build an asset. So we're not planning for the total cost of ownership of our assets. And it's really a shame because on the operating side, if you don't have enough money to maintain and do the periodic maintenance like you would on your car or on a building, then it's going to turn into a capital issue. And that's what this is all about. We have hundreds of schools with HVAC systems on the brink of failing, and roofs in the same condition. And we can't.
Being done that.
Yeah, and I just did the sanitary sewer system at Orr. We tore it up in its entirety. We're putting a new roof on there, redoing that school from the inside out. And it's really a shame that the school district has not had the funds to reinvest in its capital assets and keep them in a really good operational condition. We're just poor stewards. We're poor stewards of the gifts that we've been given.
There's an interim study that's on the books that was done in 2000s that looked at rehab and remodernization, because even state government, none of us, even local, do not do depreciation costs that you would normally do in the private sector. And so we still need to have that conversation, but it had that long ago, 17 years, it had over $1 billion in unmet needs statewide for school, just maintaining what's out there in the long run. But we have to start thinking about how to do things differently.
Absolutely.
At Orr, would you put plugs in for the students to be able to charge their phones in the lunchroom along the wall where the...
I want to take all their phones away, thank you.
I would too, but it was interesting, because I do after school All-Stars there. And they're going to be taking out the lockers. And so we're going to donate the lockers to if we do the homeless corridor. But the kids asked about making sure that at least there was a place during their lunch period they could plug in and do what they need to do. So just, why rewire again a second time around?
Got it, all right. Thank you for that.
That just got ignored.
I think this starts a video, does it not? How do I do that? Thank you.
Bottom left. Hover over the video. Hover over the video.
It's way up in the northwest.
You're doing daylighting, right, now in all of them?
Oh, yeah, we have extraordinary daylight in schools and
That came out of that
actually-
same committee I was just mentioning as a recommendation, so, okay.
Yep.
I usually try to ask that one. Yeah. How many of our rooftops have solar?
Beg your pardon?
How many of the rooftops have solar?
We don't do a lot of solar
We
because,
we tried to, and it got killed several times, so I think they went back and looked at something this last session, didn't they?
we're not doing, oh, you mean solar panels? We're not installing solar.
What a loss. Start.
It's very expensive. We've had consultants, we did $21 million in energy-saving performance contracts where we changed over to LED and other things in 51 schools. The consultants that we had steered us away from solar because of the cost. However, there's an opportunity to buy solar energy on the market, but that would, and we could go entirely 100% solar, but that would mean getting off the grid.
We'll talk.
Does this go on? There. Okay. Whoops. So these are the projects that are under construction right now. Don and D. Snyder, which I mentioned earlier, will open in January, on January 8th. The other 4 are currently under construction, doing really, really well. The classroom additions that we're doing are because the schools are over capacity, and when we say over capacity, that means the main building cannot house all the students at the school. It's a conversation we were having earlier. And we mitigate that with either a 12-month calendar or portables at that school. We don't have any schools left on 12-month calendar now, but we do have thousands of portables, and these classroom additions will replace those portables and get the kids in a proper classroom.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I see that they're all elementary schools. I guess my question is these are feeder schools for
Mhm.
middle and high school.
Right.
And looking at that unfunded capital need, are we, as we see all these kids matriculate through, are we going to have problems at the middle and high school with capacity?
I'm so glad you asked that question. It's a perfect segue into the next gentleman who's about to speak.
Okay.
Rick Baldwin, he's a expert in forecasting students, the enrollment that will happen and the transition between the levels of schools, and he's conversant about all those issues in pockets throughout the entire valley. It'd be hard to stump him on that issue, but it's really, really important that he speak at this point in answer to your question, and others that you might have. And so with that, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to present to you today.
Thank you. Before you run off,
Yes.
in your architectural designs now, are we looking to go where Deb's going and where you're going to go? That sometimes facilities and neighborhoods shift, and therefore it no longer needs to be an elementary, but you may need now another middle school. Do we design, this is a pet peeve of mine, so that you've already plumbed, you've already put maybe movable walls or had, your load bearing has been filtered out so you can actually make changes internally to be able to accommodate middle school students?
Well, we haven't experienced that issue, a problem with not having space. And in middle schools right now, and again, Rick can speak to this, we have excess capacity in middle schools. So there are certain locations in the valley where we may have an overcrowding issue in that specific area, and that will be addressed in our program. But by and large, it's elementary capacity that we need, and that's why we're building it. And that's really what happens with the growth around the valley. A lot of the neighborhoods that we have, they're quite stable, and they're built out, so they're really not going to change significantly. And we have the ability to build another program if it's right for the neighborhood. For instance, we're going to convert the Fremont Middle School to a K through 8, and that was really at the request of the
The
community.
neighborhood, that's my district. I live
Yep.
right there.
I know you do, and it was an effort that we made to engage the community because we knew they had concerns. We had numerous meetings about the curriculum. We met with the teachers. I don't know if you know that that particular school is a teacher preparatory school. They have a program that is in collaboration with UNLV in preparing teachers to be a teacher in their career. And they felt that that was a very, very important program to keep there and to extend into the middle school ranks. And the neighborhood likes it because they can keep their children there until they're ready to
They
go
can
to
walk
high
to
school.
school.
And they can walk together, and they look after each other. Another thing that I would point out that we're doing in that very area is we're going to take Gorman down and finally build a first-class facility there. And that facility will be, after it's used as a swing school for the kids from Fremont while we tear that school down and build the K through 8, they're going to use the new school at Gorman as a swing school. But when they move out, that will convert to an ELL school. And it's a special school to help kids. We have thousands of kids who are not proficient in English. So kids will come from their school
Home
they would be
school.
zoned for, their home school, and go to Gorman, and they'll accelerate their English language skills, and then they'll go back.
It's a mini immersion program then? I just got a paper from a professor that just wrote, I'll send it over to you all on the,
I'm sorry?
no, never mind,
Yeah,
I should read
newcomers.
stuff.
No, but you're absolutely right, yes. That's sort of the new
Seriously,
model going
Dr.
forward.
Carrison just sent it, his daughter just wrote the national paper on immersion programs for ELL, so I'll send that over. It hasn't
be
even
great.
been released yet.
Yes, that would be really
Okay.
great. Thank you.
And don't lose the solar panels on top of the Fremont, relocate them somewhere, because I got that money from the grant from NV Energy to put that on there for their STEAM curriculum.
Okay, we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, talk to, Tony Sanchez could help with that, because they owed the district, they had got slapped for something, and so they had to do something in the community, so we decided to put the solar panels on Fremont.
Okay, we can find a place for them,
Okay.
I'm sure, or we'll take them off and replace
Okay.
them somehow.
Thanks.
All right.
Madam-
Thank you very much, everybody. And Rick?
Madam Chair, if I could just before
Absolutely.
this gentleman leaves,
Robert?
I just wanted to comment, the city of Las Vegas has seen a number of the applications come through to do the new elementary prototype to replace the portables. And I just want to commend Linda and the team that's been doing those applications. Unfortunately, they've had some community pushback on a few of those, but they've been doing a tremendous job in trying to work to get those new buildings added to get rid of the prototypes. I would just mention that as you guys are looking at the site planning for doing that, one of the things that we're noticing, at least with the city schools, is that we're losing playground space.
Yeah.
And that is a deep concern for members of the community on where we're going to get that activity space back for the schools, not just for the school time, but after school. A lot of kids in the neighborhoods use those school facilities. So to the extent that you can, I would just ask that you guys continue to look at opportunities to, you know, one of the things that we've had is a number of variances for parking to reduce the on-site parking requirement. Maybe that's an opportunity, if you don't need the parking, maybe request a larger variance and try to figure out a way to reclaim green space for the kids to play.
Okay, one thing, the way I would respond to this, bear in mind that all of the classroom additions are two-story additions.
They are.
And they replace portables, which of course are single-story. So it frees up that space, and in almost every case is redeveloped back into playground space. And that we usually build the new two-story addition onto the school while the school's in operation. So we have to have the portables there. But when the classroom addition is done, those portables go away. So they'll come off there, and that space will be redeveloped. So, but in with regard to parking, that's become more and more of an issue.
Ingress and
because
egress,
when they have events at the school.
Yeah.
When the kids either perform or they're being recipients of awards or at the end of a school year or whatever, it's very hard. And we don't have enough parking in virtually all of our schools in the elementary and middle level. And it causes on a daily basis, about a half hour of congestion around every school. And then at times when we have events, on-street parking and issues like that. We're well aware of it, and we're trying to work through them as best we can.
But Robert's right, because in the planning, Linda did a great job, and the staff did with the two-story, but they wouldn't take it off our pictures, and so it made it look like it was still the portables with the two-story, which caused consternation. I know we had discussions as we were looking at gardens. You're right about the parking, though. It's like Walter Long, it's so landlocked. We don't have enough ingress egress for parents to drop the kids off safely, so that's something also that needs to be looked at in design as you look at your extensions that are coming into play.
And of course, it's much harder with the older schools.
Right.
Because they're landlocked and we have very few opportunities to bring them up to the standards that we built today.
Yeah, the PE teachers have weighed in because we don't want to lose any more space even for them. We still want open doors, open schools.
gonna be my point,
That's
yes.
another, right? We've had those conversations at the county for a while. Yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Lisa,
Sorry,
sure.
Madam Chair. Well, it's great to see you all here, first of all. I think it's awesome that you all are doing a presentation in alignment with the regional plan. We're at the City of Henderson, as you know, really excited about working together more on education. We have our Education Advisory Board that's been underway now for maybe 8 months or so. But we're also working on implementation around integrating schools into neighborhoods and doing design standards. So we're working on a school siting ordinance that would, we just are in the draft stages, just, getting initial input from you all. So I just wanted to share that too, that's something from the local government side that we're working on, and that would apply to both charters and public schools, any school, so that we have some level of predictability with play areas and access and safe connections to surrounding neighborhoods. So I just want to say thank you, and we're excited to keep working on that together.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate you including us in that process and giving us the opportunity to review and comment on the ordinance. So we understand it and can offer constructive criticism on the new ordinance. So I look forward to its implementation. Thank you.
And before Rick comes up, there's one other comment I'd like to make, just because you brought up charter schools. We're also looking to work together with our cities and trying to figure out, so when a charter school comes up, this is in no way trying to prevent a charter school from coming in, just notifying the school district so we have a clean way of saying this charter school is going here, so we can allocate resources appropriately. And that's been a real struggle for the last specifically 3 years, where we don't know what charter school is coming in, and then we allocate teachers
Really?
and resources, and then suddenly kids won't show up, and then we have to figure that out sometime during the year. So that's another priority that we have at the Clark County School District. Again, it's not to prevent charter schools from coming in, just so we have a better relationship, so we know where they're coming and how we plan for that.
That's a problem.
We had a bill in front of the legislature this last session.
Well, when I'm up there, you just come back and see me.
So, anyways, I'm off my soapbox here. That's an important thing from something I've worked on. So,
Lastly, I'd like to say that the result of the Southern Nevada Strong and their work that was done on school siting was very, very valuable to me to understand what is really good for school siting, because I have really had no experience in that when I joined the district, and to understand what the objectives were in terms of what you're trying to do with your ordinance, and that is site schools so that they have proper access and they have access to public facilities like parks and trails, and so kids can walk and ride their bikes to school and those type of things. The work that was done was of great value to me personally, to understand what schools were all about and how they fit into the community. I was really happy to have that information and to share it with others, frankly, and our designers. And I think going forward, it really has big implications for how communities and jurisdictions deal with developers, and looking longer term and placing these public facilities in places where they have proper access and they fit within the community. Very often, the school district is relegated the worst possible piece of land.
Yes, you are. No infrastructure, and you got to pay for all the
And
costs.
we're forced to spend money that we could spend in the classroom and on classrooms on sewer and mitigating washes and getting rid of overhead power lines and things that, because the developers don't want to develop on that piece of land, it gets given to the kid and to the school district out of generosity. So it's unfortunate, but that's the kind of planning that's gone on in many places in the past. So to the extent that you can be supportive of jurisdictions allocating land and allocating land that really fits well within the community going forward, that would be very helpful. And of course, this whole total cost of ownership and the money for aggregating information, because pretty soon, we're going to have a new superintendent. That's going to come in June. Our superintendent's going to retire. And pretty soon, we're going to have a new governor. We're going to have to explain things to the governor about what we need in the school district. And pretty soon, we're going to have a new legislature, and we're going to have to explain it to them. How is the school district funded, and how does it, in layman's terms, because they're not all familiar with how to build schools, or what it costs, or what it costs to operate buildings. So that's what we're spending at least some of our time on now, planning for this next year. And I think that's going to be of great value to have those hundreds of parents now involved in the schools and understanding what money they really have to work with, and dispel this notion that the school district's flush with cash and we're wasting every dollar that we have. So thank you for listening to me today.
Well, I was going to
appreciate
say,
the
the fact that
opportunity.
you endorse Southern Nevada Strong as having some, and explain that has some influence over how you're thinking about school siting is, that's like success to find right there. So credit to everybody who made sure that that was included as one of the tasks. I think
It was very important.
that's huge.
Chris?
Yeah, Bob.
One last comment before the next speaker comes on, and that is that historically this valley has always been a community of subdivisions, and so we just build out, and further away from the urban core. We're getting to a point that we're starting to realize that the cost of infrastructure and maintaining infrastructure, keeping these things up, are highly expensive. And the long-range notion, at least in my mind for the school district, is they need to start thinking about how we deal with the urban setting in the context of this being a metropolitan area rather than a community of subdivisions that we've been in the past. Because while we once had these large regional shopping centers, we're seeing those beginning to fail and turn around and change. And the large schools are going to become the same way, because they're going to be impacted by traffic and the events of that occur because of distance and timing and a constrained roadway system that we really can't continue to expand. And so somehow in your long-range thinking, you have to look at how do we go back into these neighborhoods and use our schools as economic resources to draw redevelopment and repurposing back to those neighborhoods so that we can stabilize growth and development across the valley.
Excellent point. Repurposing some of our big boxes, instead of building a brand-new school, take over the Albertsons on the corner of Maryland and Sahara and do something internally with there, but then you have a community component to it, possibly. So those are some things to think about. Ray, did somebody, I saw a hand? No? Okay.
I'll turn it over
Thank
to
you
Rick
so
Baldwin.
much.
Thank you.
Good
Madam Chair,
afternoon.
members of the
Mr. Numbers expert.
Ooh, excuse me. So I've been asked to keep it short because I guess we're running short on
Would you
time.
restate your name for the record, just so we have?
Rick Baldwin, I'm the Director of Demographic, Zoning, and Geographic Information Systems for the Clark County School District. Essentially, we're the
That's new.
planning department. But I'd like to, before I actually begin, go over my slides, I'd like to touch on a few things that got brought up. One, Mr. Stevens brought up the charter school communication portion. We do enrollment projections for all of our all of our schools. And so having better communication and understanding when those and where those charter schools are opening allows us to better plan for those schools and establish their budgets. So for instance, we had 2 new charter schools that opened this year that we weren't aware of. They opened in areas that we didn't know that they were opening. We're trying to better track that information, but it can be challenging. And then so all the schools around them, these happen to be elementary schools, came in significantly under capacity and then underutilized. And those schools therefore take a big hit in their budgets when that happens. So just that communication helps us to better plan for our schools as well. I wanted to, with this slide, even before we move on, our building and additions, a few years ago, 2015, maybe even before that, the legislature actually mandated full-day kindergarten in Clark County School District. And so all these new schools are being built with 6 kindergarten rooms, and all these building additions are being built with 6 kindergarten rooms. If you're not aware, every elementary school for the past 50 years, 60 years, had only been built with 2 to 3 kindergarten rooms, and they were scheduled or planned to be an AM and a morning program and an afternoon program. Full day now requires 25 or 21 students in each of those rooms all day. So that, while it's a wonderful thing and we're not complaining about it, we took a big hit capacity-wise when that happened, and so that's what a lot of these building additions are planned to account for in the new schools. Okay, so demographics and zoning. So my department, we track every residential development in all of Clark County. All residential. We don't really track any commercial. That's not really our goal, but we apply a district-wide average student yield to every residential development, be it single family or multifamily, and that we use to calculate student impacts on the area schools, and so we listed those there. Currently, within our development tracking, as of September, we track everything on a school year calendar, so September to August. We had 51,045 active developments. These are apartment complexes, single-family homes, in some stage of construction, currently selling, leasing their units. Another 40,000 that are currently planned. These are plans that have all been submitted to the various entities, which most of you in this room. Another category that we've included is what we call the hibernated. These are sometimes in we started this during the recession, projects that were planned and then never actually came to fruition within the standard 2 years of submission. So we calculated those into a hibernation mode. Several of those have, in more recent years, come back online. And then we also track all the zone changes just to see areas that we know anticipate some type of future growth or future change in the land zoning. So with all of that, the 51,000 new residential active units will generate nearly 9,000 elementary school students at full implementation of those projects. So, and those can, in most cases, take several years. We track what we call absorption rate for every project, and they vary based on price point, type of product that they're building. So just, we're looking at, and just to point out too, we only are looking at Clark County School District students. We don't calculate into our numbers. I don't have access to charter school data, homeschool students, private school students. These are just numbers that we're calculating based on our averages that we will see in Clark County School District. So this is an example of, this is actually this, in the northwest, the Sky Canyon Master Plan development. So this is just a sample of a development tracking map that we would calculate for, this is Bilbray and Schirkenbach elementary schools. We track, again, the two different categories, the two main categories, the active and then the inactive planned. So as you can see in this area, there's a lot of development planned in that area. Based off the numbers you see on there are the planned units by actual project. Then we'll calculate our district-wide student yields to that. On the next page is actually, it's the spreadsheet that goes along with all that development tracking. We track the developer, who the builder is, the development name, and sometimes those vary from the common development name. If it's a single family, multifamily, total number of units, total number of currently remaining to be built, and then the district-wide average student yield we would anticipate seeing in those. So next slides I'm going to show you, these are what we commonly call our hotspot maps, heat maps, some people say. We use these for our planning purposes. This first one that I'm showing you, and Mr. Cumbers already went over the 7 new elementary schools that are opened, will be opened. And so the hotspot map all the schools, these are school attendance zones, so this compares the school capacity, and when we calculate capacity, capacity is calculated by the brick and mortar, what is constructed use of the building. It does not include portable classrooms. So again, Mr. Cumbers had mentioned our over 2,000 portable classrooms that we have throughout all of Clark County. That is how we accommodate for the overcrowding. So the school zones that you see in red, and this is last year's map, and I'll explain why. The schools in red are 25% or greater above capacity. Schools highlighted in yellow, and these are the zones, are between 10% and 24.99% of capacity. The schools that are unhighlighted or white are between 10% below and 10% above capacity. This is ideally where we would like to see our schools. And then the schools that are in blue are actually elementary schools in this case that actually have space available. And we do a few different things that we try to attract students into those, or sometimes it gives us ideas of different type of programs we can add to some schools to attract students into, or rezoning that we could possibly look at if development doesn't warrant, doesn't indicate that they'll probably see growth in the next few years. So I'm starting with this map because this is where we basically started before we see the impacts of any new school construction from the 2015 capital improvement program. So I wanted to show you where we started from, where we're going to. Lastly, the schools that are, the zones that are highlighted with a black outline on this map, those were schools that were operating on a year-round calendar in 2016-17. And that was one of our chief goals, was to get all of our schools back to a 9-month calendar. So this is where we started from. All these stars on this map represent where our new schools that are currently planned are being built. So this is this year's hotspot map, so you can actually see just with those 7 new elementary schools, just the impacts we've already seen with the 23 building additions that will be completed by the end of this school year over the summer. Next year's map will look even better, and our current trajectory, we should reach capacity in our elementary schools about 2021 school year with our current plans. So this is the hotspot map, same idea for middle school zones. And so we actually have a surplus of middle school seats available. If those of you that have been in town long enough, the 1998 bond program, if you were here back then, our middle schools, we had many middle schools that were operating on year-round and double sessions in some cases, that were operating both year-round and double sessions, meaning 2 schools operating in the same building, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoons.
I taught at Swainston when it was the largest middle school in the world. It was, that NPR noted that. It was insane. But he had a great administrator, and she handled us somehow or another.
So again, you can see on this map, a lot of blue, so that represents schools that are under capacity. As Mr. Cumbers had mentioned, we're very excited. We received a nearly $15 million grant from the federal government for Magnet Schools of America to implement 2 new middle schools, magnet school programs. These will be STEM programs, O'Callahan Middle School and Lead Middle School, as well as Gearing Elementary School will be a STEM elementary school program. And those will be what we call dedicated magnet schools. So we are actually, I facilitate the Attendance Zone Advisory Commission. We will be rezoning those areas and those schools, dissolving their middle school zones, so that the entire school will then become a full magnet program. Any student that is enrolled there has to apply to be accepted. That will be a phased program to allow the students that are currently there to phase out if they don't want to necessarily be rezoned. And it's just more, it assists the families a little bit better. Here's our high school hotspot map. So high school, our current need for high school is 2 high schools right now. And you can see Coronado High School is over 3,400 students, and Foothill High School is near 3,000 students. Foothill High School actually has a lower capacity, so that actually brings their percent of capacity up a little higher than some of the other schools. But the yellow indicates all those schools that are growing quite rapidly for our high school. And like, as I said, our current need, as of this day, we could open 2 high schools today, and they would be at capacity. So I tried to go as quickly as I can.
Thank you.
I don't normally do that very well. I'll take any questions you might have.
See if we have any questions. Thank you for doing that. It was my fault that I got us off task. Sorry. Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. We'll brainstorm some other ideas on how to better incorporate school district. I wasn't aware of the charter school issue, so that's something to take a look at. Okay, an update on Southern Nevada Strong Community Engagement Toolkit. Who's doing that?
Yes, Madam Chair, just to kind of introduce this item, again, you may, I think hopefully all of you know that one of the hallmarks of Southern Nevada Strong during the planning phase with City of Henderson was really this idea of let's make sure we reach out as much as possible to the community, especially vulnerable populations. And so one of the tasks that we've had on our plate this past year is how can we continue that dialogue moving forward? How can we develop some tools that can be helpful to our partners or helpful to the community? And so what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Daniel Fazekas, who's going to walk you through kind of where we are in this process, and then maybe a call for help from everyone around the table as well.
Thank you, Raymond, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'll do a quick update to the Southern Nevada Strong Community Engagement Toolkit. Quick background, last meeting, Southern Nevada Strong team, as well as RTC's Government Affairs and Media Marketing team proposed creating this Community Engagement Toolkit. And in this meeting, we're going to provide some of our deliverables that we promised to you in this meeting, some survey results. We did soft launch our community engagement map that you all should have received a couple of weeks ago. We're still receiving comments, and we hope you guys have reviewed the map and continue reviewing the map if you can. And again, if we have some time, talk briefly on next steps and what we propose, how to develop this toolkit to be workable for the whole community. Quick survey results. So we do appreciate you taking the survey. We launched it back in July. We had over 20 public agencies, nonprofits take the survey. As you can see, most organizations do public outreach. I'm going to go through just a few questions. When it comes to how your organizations do public outreach, majority have done, and other here is basically the one we didn't have there is when a project warrants it. So that's when most organizations, public agencies, do public outreach when there is a project or they need feedback on something. When it comes to seeking input on a specific project, do you set a percentage on a certain percentage on targeting your audience? Like if you're talking to a certain neighborhood or a group, majority do say they try to do that. When it comes to difficulty reaching a particular segment of an audience when you do public outreach, the majority did say they had an issue getting, particular difficulty getting specific audience feedback. What type of engagement activities? It really ranged on pretty much everything. Social media was their top engagement activity. We did hear a lot about table exercises and also partnering with different events. When it comes to how frequent do you create documents or materials in different languages, majority of the organizations said sometimes they do. About 35% said they always do that. So, and then our final question was, would you be interested in a community development engagement toolkit? And everyone said yes, so appreciate that. That gave us a good understanding and direction on how to go next.
And just real quick for clarification, sorry, Danny. If you aren't familiar with the survey, it went out to the public information officers from each of your agencies. So while it may have not been the people around this table that filled it out, it was pretty much everyone from
Yes.
representatives from your organization. So just wanted to clarify that.
So the community engagement map toolkit was basically something that we pulled from organizations throughout the region that have already done this. So King County in Seattle, Maricopa County Association of Governments, as well as Denver Mile High Connects organization. They've created these community engagement toolkits, map programs that, if I can get it, and of course it's going to act up now. There we go.
So while Danny's pulling that up, some of you might be familiar with, we worked on a project analysis tool to help, especially the Public Works and Planning departments, identify where there might be transportation needs in the community. This was a result of something that came out of our Transportation Resource Advisory Committee recommendation that we saw from a demonstration back from Sacramento. And so what we did is, in this discussion looking at best practices and kind of this idea of an equity atlas, Danny's been working with folks from the MPO side of the house and our GIS and IT side of the house to say, how can we put different data sets out on the web that people can download, look at in terms of where there are vulnerable populations, wherever there's, taking a really robust set of sociodemographic information from the census and put it up there as a tool that people can kind of go into and identify.
So as you can see, we've identified a number of different demographic, socioeconomic data sets, basically from the U.S. Census. So the census provides a number of different socioeconomic data sets from housing as well as transportation, income, and we provided it for the community to kind of at a jurisdictional level all the way down to a neighborhood level. Right now it's being soft launched, and we're trying to get feedback from all different jurisdictions and other specialists who are in this field. And we're asking, is this tool useful? Is there something that else do we need? Is there other data sets that would be helpful when it comes to this tool?
I want to acknowledge our partners at the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance and United Way of Southern Nevada. Both have dashboards and mapping functions too within some of the data that they're providing on the web. We see, and the health district also has a dashboard. And what we're trying to show with this tool and the way that you can export some of the demographics of where to find certain populations or just kind of where they live. We really see this as an input into programs or an input into a public engagement process. And so this could help inform, guide, and develop processes to collect voices that really need to be included in a planning process or in a public engagement process. So as the toolkit's built out, I think that this will be really working very nicely with all of our community partners across the whole valley.
And it can be used for grants as well. I mean, I think there are a lot of applications. It can be used even at the neighborhood level, just to help identify, programs that they want to start organically. And so, again, I think one of the things that we're asking for your input on is if you didn't receive the link to this site and you or it got dropped or whatever, let us know. We'll send that back out to you. But go in and play with it a little bit so that you can see its functionality. Let us know if it has some purpose. And this is just a piece of a bigger picture community toolkit that I'll let Danny explain a little bit further.
So obviously, as we mentioned in the last meeting, this is just one deliverable. There's going to be multiple deliverables when it comes to creating a matrix of different kind of a spectrum of different community engagement activities, what best practices there are, and how you can integrate that into your community engagement process. We're also going to create templates and different kind of best practices when it comes to taking surveys, when it comes to communicating with different neighborhoods, stakeholder groups. But one of the big goals of this is to make sure that this toolkit is not just sitting on a shelf. So we asked last meeting, we asked for partnerships, are there projects that you're currently working on or you would like to work on that you would like to use our staff, basically us, to help coordinate with, and we can actually work out your project and also refine this toolkit. We're still asking for that, but we're also looking at now maybe we need to develop this more in a specialized manner and develop a work group. So if there are organizations or people that you know within your organization that would like to help us, SNS staff, develop this toolkit, we're more than willing to develop, really facilitate that work group in the next 3 to 6 months, and we can help build this toolkit out. To not be only data-driven, but really to make organizations be able to communicate to the neighbor level and vice versa. So, yes.
I think that's really valuable. I would take you up on that to participate in a work group. At least I'm thinking of also our demographer, Andy Powell might get some value out of that, so we can have both the outreach side of the house and the analytics side of the house figuring out how to leverage that.
Thanks. That's great. Any other volunteers to help us figure out how we can best enable agencies?
Robin Casperson, United Way, Southern Nevada. I raised my hand. We launched our tool this morning called Community Connect. It's live on our website, so please visit it. As Jeremy Aguero says, please go break it, so we know what's wrong with it.
Okay, cool.
But we would look forward to doing that. Dan, or Daniel, I apologize.
Danny, that's fine.
Danny. We'd like to do that. We'd like to do that very soon, maybe like next week. So I'll
Yes.
see you after.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we'll be reaching out in the next a couple weeks as well, within the next week, and organizing this work group. And we appreciate any comments. And we appreciate Las Vegas for providing comments already. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. The next is an updated performance indicators and feedback on implementation of, done. Receive an update in 2017 priorities and 2018 progress.
Actually, no, that
Oh.
you were right the first time.
I was.
Yeah.
That's so odd.
Well, this one was community engagement. This one
This
is
the other.
performance.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Back to item 7.
Sorry.
So, Madam Chair, we believe that, one of our core responsibilities as core administrator is really making sure that we're tracking progress on the plan and finding ways to kind of convey that information in a digestible format. And so over the past year, Mr. Paul Gully, who's our management analyst with Southern Nevada Strong, has been looking at different indicators, different metrics that we can use to analyze progress on Southern Nevada Strong. And I think there's a lot of good news to be shared here. There's a lot of progress and a lot of different metrics. So why don't I turn it over to Paul, and he can let you know what he found out.
Sure, thank you.
Hi, Paul.
So I'm going to provide a very, very quick update so we can try and get back on track here time-wise on a few items that were introduced at our last steering committee meeting that, as Raymond said, both aim to kind of measure progress of regional plan implementation. So the first, if you recall, was the Southern Nevada Strong Indicators Dashboard. And just for comparison's sake, this was the original one that was developed. It featured 20 different indicators and displayed data from 2012 and 2014. And this is the recently released redesigned dashboard. So it was just put up on our website during the past week and is available to be viewed and downloaded. It was also featured in our newsletter that just went out this week. So I have to give some credit to our government affairs and marketing team who worked with us to kind of put together this design and layout. So we now have 35 indicators that track progress. You can see we have trend lines that allow you to get a sense for how things have progressed over recent years. Each of the statistics is more clearly displayed, and we're still kind of categorizing each of the indicators by theme, but we also have subcategories. So, for instance, within investing in complete communities, the blue section, we have that further broken down into public safety, environment and sustainability, housing and neighborhood, and health. And that kind of more closely aligns with how the Invest in Complete Communities section in the regional plan was laid out. We also have updated data. So the ACS just released its 2016 data a few weeks ago. So that's been incorporated into this dashboard. Apologies to the school district. We don't have your latest graduation rates in there, but we'll make sure to get those in there as soon as possible. And it's actually, I was taking a look back at the data from 2013. You've increased over 10 percentage points, which is
Awesome.
significant and impressive.
It is.
And so this right now is just kind of a static document, obviously. The next step is to really take this and create an innovative, dynamic dashboard on our website. So that's really what we're focusing on now. We have the descriptions, we have information on each of the estimates and the sources. We have comparison data all ready to go. At this point, it's just exploring the different software and platforms to make sure we have a user-friendly but also interactive and dynamic dashboard that we can present. Just quickly wanted to highlight, well, I can actually skip some of this, but I was going to go through each section, kind of highlight some high-level takeaways, but I think we can move past those.
The good news is we're trending in the right direction on a lot of things. A couple of things that you might want to take note of is under some of the pedestrian and bicycle fatalities. We're kind of not really going in the right direction. We're kind of all over the place. And then some of the crime stuff, actually, we're seeing some crime increases as well. So I think that's the things to look out for. But education, all those other, you'll see the directions are headed in the right direction, which is a good sign for our region.
Except parks, 2.6% is still kind of pitiful. What you need, Bob?
Not updated.
Bob?
My question is that, do we have a list of kind of sister cities with similar demographics that we could pose ours versus theirs to see how we trend with those other communities?
We'd
I
probably
think
have to
that-
look at service industry based too, so that you're looking at like incomes maybe?
When we get this on our website and becomes a little bit more able to put a lot more detail and information, that's definitely something that we could look into incorporating.
Or at least the national average. Lisa and I
Well,
talked about that.
Yeah, some things you can compare nationally, some things your peer cities depend on what you're looking at. If you want to look at peer cities for the economic growth, you want to look at maybe not the Intermountain West, but like Orlando and some of the other tourist-based economies.
More
So
of what I
it depends on what you're looking at, development patterns. So, but if you're going to put it on the website, you can do whatever you want. So.
Yeah, but I was thinking more in terms of those cities that we tend to measure ourselves by,
Yeah.
to see how we compete with them and how we can improve ourselves, to look at where those trends are there versus where the trends are here, I think would be helpful. The other thing that, because I think it's an excellent tool, the other thing that I think would be extremely helpful is to be able to have the valley somehow in some kind of, I would say neighborhood, but probably can't do neighborhoods, but in some kind of a grid maybe, where we could look at one sector versus the other to measure how one relates to the other. And so if we have particular problems in one, it's going to pop out versus another, so that we, in a planning mode, can use that as a means to go in and focus on that particular area.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. Once this is up, and this is an excellent tool, we could probably do some overlays with social services so we could drill down. I know that Marilyn Kirkpatrick and I are doing Pathways from Poverty in 2 sections of our district, which Metro said is for like the last 50 years were our hotspots. So we're like trying to figure out how do we, not just for gunshot hotspots, but quality of everything that comes in. And I just redrove I live up the street from it, but I didn't realize I didn't have a single child care provider in the entire area. So there's other barriers that come into play. And if we're able to, with United Way and Health District, drill down into those, then we should wrap services around and see what your changes are, rather than just throwing money in different places.
Yeah, and
So
I think
this
that
will be a great tool.
the tool that Danny just highlighted, I think, might be an opportunity for us to do that and make sure,
Yeah.
that there's, not duplication with United Way's tool and the Health District tool and others, but, if there are gaps, and again, that's why I encourage you to go into that tool and kind of think through some scenarios of how you might use it and what might be missing. But if that data exists and we can, geocode it and put it into a GIS platform, we can integrate it into that tool that Danny mentioned.
And are you thinking of the opportunity index also? Because we
That-
have the
Yeah.
opportunity index
Correct.
analysis that takes a bunch of indicators that were developed from an academic institution that is map-based. That could be part of it. I mean, the indicators are some data, some are spatial, so it's probably going to be a little bit
Yeah.
of those two tools to look at everything.
And not to flip back to the other topic, but that was also being mentioned too, but at a time, is additional like composite data. It's very data heavy, that the mapping tool, but is there kind of like an overall layer of composites, like equity index, opportunity index? There's a lot of things that kind of
Right.
tell a story of neighborhoods in a quick fashion.
Yeah, and look at your unemployment, underemployment, all those other factors undocumented.
deserts,
Because I know that, our COPS officers depend on that connection, and right now they're having their.
And that, I think that work group will,
So,
I think that work group will help identify that and
Yeah.
really drive.
like
and-
yesterday, we held our first job fair
Records.
at Boulevard Mall. We had over 825 people show up. It was incredible. Jaime did an awesome job. Jaime Cruz. Yeah.
All right, so just really generally, progress was made on the majority of these, positive progress, especially when you compare with 2012, which is our benchmark year. Danny mentioned creating a work group specific to the engagement toolkit, and it's something we're also considering with this dashboard update. There were a few pieces of data that we struggled getting access to. There's also some other data that's tracked differently across jurisdictions. So we've kind of mulled the idea of creating a work group to kind of help navigate that process in the future. And really quickly, this was the other item that we updated. It's the implementation activity graphic. That was, again, meant to be a snapshot of activity and efforts around each of the strategies. Again, it's gone through a few design changes, and our government affairs and marketing team kind of led the effort on that as well. So,
If you recall, this is the over 300, we had over 300 strategies. So this is trying to show that there is movement happening on all these strategies. We annually go through it, really almost every few months, we kind of go through it, update it on all the different partners who are doing those strategies and really implementing the plan. So
Right.
this is our attempt at doing that.
and so,
Question.
yeah.
Question.
Yes, please, Robin.
Those strategies, do those tie to outcomes, or is that the next iteration of the strategy?
So the strategies as they currently exist in the plan, most of them don't have outcomes, specific outcomes or targets assigned to them. So that was a little bit of the difficulty in trying to classify each or give each a certain level of completeness or progress.
Level of effort's important too.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And another thing to note here, I'm sorry to interrupt, Chair. This is something we hope to transition, you may have said this, to electronically as well, that, it's not meant to just be a static PDF. It's, you can click on it, drill down deeper, you can see where are we, the dark purple shows significant progress, the gray shows where maybe we haven't started a lot of work yet, and so you can click on where are we making progress or where is there significant activity, and then where are there places where maybe, that we could use a little nudge to help us get these things jump-started, so.
And we have started putting online the notes that we took when we were assessing the strategies and when we met with most of you and your colleagues to get a better sense of things as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for shortening it. Appreciate it. It's all important. It's my fault, so I talk too much. Receive an update on the 2017-2018 process, and this one's for possible action.
Yeah, it's just for possible action, but I don't think we're actually
Yeah,
looking
you just
for. So it's really just an opportunity to let you know. Included in the backup is it's one of the handouts, I'm sorry, is just the work that we've been doing over the last year and talking about which work is going to continue from this year to next year. So I'll turn it over to Ray Lathrop to just quickly walk us through that.
Yeah, what I really wanted to do was just to spend a moment and thank everyone for their time over the last couple of months. We met one-on-one with almost every member of our steering committee and almost all the alternates as well. And what we really have been trying to do over the last 3 months is look at what have we done over 2017 and what is to come in 2018. So I really want to share our appreciation. You either met with me and Raymond or me and Danny or some iteration of the three of us, and we're just very, very grateful for the time that you guys spent with us. We heard a lot of feedback, all positive, around the work that we've got ahead of us and the work that we have behind us. And I wanted to just acknowledge and share with you some of the insights that we gained from the rest of the groups, just so you know that we're acknowledging your input and considering it as we continue to plan ahead internally. We heard a lot about interest in data and smart communities and also evaluation pieces. And so that's something that we're going to be incorporating. Similar to the mapping tool, the dashboard, the indicators, all of us are really worried that we're making sure we capture and measure the progress of the plan, and we want to continue to work on that. There was a lot of discussion from many of our partners around financing or investment monies for the implementation of the plan, and so that ties really well into the grants work that we've done, but also we've been discussing with other partners around ways that we might be able to attract or increase some investment dollars here in the Valley. A lot of our partners discussed the need for a community conversation around housing, either affordable housing, workforce housing. We actually had the opportunity to work this last Monday with State Senator Ratty to have a conversation to inform an interim committee that she will chair this next year on what is housing issues here in Clark County. And we consider, and we're kind of looking at the ways that maybe Southern Mass Strong might be involved in that conversation in the future.
Can I ask you a question, Ray? Is that housing, apartment, single family,
With
everything?
everything as categorized as affordable, workforce, or supportive. So it was
Could
really
we
a
make sure
large-
that we have homeless housing
Yeah,
in there for
they-
the transition part
Mhm.
of that?
There was definitely inclusion of some transitional homeless providers.
And then in this chairmanship, because Washoe actually is, they've gone from a 230,000 to 320,000 average household in like 6
Yeah.
months. It's off the charts. So
Yeah.
are they looking at that
Mhm.
part of it? Because I think it's their tech industry starting
Yeah.
to drive it, but not all the salaries have equalized in the long run.
So, yeah, we were very happy to support a conversation around Clark County because State Senator Ratty being from Washoe,
Right.
they face different issues than we do, and so she was kind of listening to some of that. We heard a lot about the role of Southern Mass Strong from each of you in a supporting fashion or in a collaborating fashion, and we want you to know that we're looking at our own work plans for this year and next year. Internally, we've been doing some strategic planning, and so we hope to, in January, share with you what our next plan looks like and for our internal work, and hopefully you'll hear a lot and see a lot of the input that we took from you guys. And then we also talked about the steering committee and what does the steering committee look like and how we can engage each one of you. And so today you'll see that both of those presentations previous to mine ask for your participation and your engagement on a specific challenge that our staff faces. So we hope that you take the opportunity to engage if that is a good role for you. In the future, we'll have many more opportunities and invitations for participation in some of our work because we know that everyone really asked for that. So we just wanted to make sure that to acknowledge all of your time and input into the really important work that we do, and we're very appreciative for all of you around the table for spending some time with us to discuss kind of how Southern Nevada Strong is going and how we're going to do all these great things in the future.
Anything else? Any questions?
We're always open for more input. So if you see something you don't like, or if you see something somewhere else and you want us to talk about it, definitely just send us a note. We're always open for ideas.
Thank you. Do we have any regional updates from any of the board members? I just want to say this community came together on October 1st. It was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you to our police, to our fire, our EMS, but every person stepped up. I think people realize now that there's a community beyond the neon that they never really thought about in the long run. So just thank you for everybody on that part of it.
I just,
Lisa,
can
go
I
ahead.
share just a quick invitation to the American Planning Association is having a luncheon on November 15th at the Innovation Center, 11:30 to 1:30. We're having a speaker come from Dallas who's on the Dallas Area Rapid Transit Board and is kind of a professional advocate, so an urban designer by trade, but has started his own started his own blog and became kind of a community advocate around transit. And is part of implementation of the regional plan too, talking about how do we create capital projects that support community investment and revitalization and engage the community and don't bifurcate communities and unintentionally fragment neighborhood fabric. So open invitation to all of you to try to attend if you're available.
Great, thank you. And I'll just point
Real
out
quick,
Boulevard.
when was that, Lisa, and who's?
It's November
14th.
15th, and I can send it to Raymond so he can.
Yeah,
distribute the
I'd like to
invitation.
get Bess Foley Warren to, and Gail Tuzlo to
Yeah.
send that.
We'll go ahead and forward it around to the entire committee, and then that way everybody has it.
Okay. And then secondarily, maybe RTC or SNS might want to participate whenever somebody forms the work group to kind of analyze what worked well within our emergency system, what are future plans for some things.
Yeah.
And the only reason when you mentioned the light rail, I still think it's time maybe to take a look at the strip and how we move traffic because ambulances and cars had difficulty getting through. And granted, I've not made any bias that I do think we should have it available, the strip for emergency vehicles, metro, and public transit, and start to move away from cars so that you actually have access during that time. So I just throw that out. It might be time now to revisit that conversation where you can possibly be a leader and analyze it. I don't know if it's right, wrong, or otherwise, but it's something that we probably should take a step back and take a look at now.
Yeah, some of our community partners are discussing ways to be more planning for disaster resilience, and so I think that that's a good segue into that.
We might want to do is we're getting ready to start the feasibility study for the resort corridor, connecting the airport, resort corridor, convention center, et cetera. So
I would say there, and
That
then
might
with
be
the emergency management, I can't
additional
think of what
scope.
the right term is that they have at the health district. That help me with that one.
The incident command structure?
That's one of them. Then we have the Homeland, you've got 4 or 5 different groups, and maybe we just figure out who all's viewing
Yeah.
what worked well and what needs to maybe,
That's a good
we
point.
need to prepare for in a different way that we haven't thought of in the past.
Yeah.
All right.
I do want to share with the committee that we did have to cancel our Southern Nevada Strong Summit, which was scheduled for October 2nd. You should get an invitation this coming week, we hope, as we finalize our speakers and see if we can bring everyone back for an invitation for a rescheduled summit. So stay tuned in your inbox. We hope to have that to everybody soon.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing nothing else, this is the final time for, hi, Jacob. This is the final time for public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
No.